All right, we're live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we're going to look at the crypto markets and discuss, the recent crash that's just happened. What I thought about this, what I think caused it, and what you should look out for next. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at other big news updates that have happened in the space since our live stream that we did yesterday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel about 9:30 a.m. Central Time. Just subscribe, turn on notifications down below. You'll find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to answer some of your questions and a lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. Last but not least, and I think I'm saying this video, it's not be financial advice, and there's lots of scammers down in the comment section below. Just ignore them. Like, I'll never give you my phone number or ask you to invest with me. So we got people jumping in the chat here. We got Culture Highs. We got Quinn. I hope I'm saying that right. Ajit, Francis, Ruben, Johan, Ahmed, Marco, Jeremy. Welcome. All right, so let's jump into this. So let's talk about the crypto markets because, while we were doing our live stream yesterday was when things started to get kind of crazy and we started to experience, significant correction in the price that kind of got everybody freaked out, pretty panicked. And we observed it, live, and we're kind of talking about it. But now I want to kind of do a bit of a post-mortem on the correction that we saw and what I think is a pretty huge factor. Okay, so before we get into the explanation here, I want to say, typically whenever you see these kind of crashes, you see people trying to essentially form a really strong narrative around, why it happened. It was this reason, it was that reason. At the end of the day, markets have multiple factors that determine why the price moves in a certain direction, but I want to talk about one big factor that I think is very significant, all right, to the movement that we saw yesterday, and why I think it's a short-term thing. So yesterday, we saw this data come out shortly after the stream. My camera's not working. Give me 1 second. Let me just fix it here. Just fix my camera. It's kind of annoying that whenever I connect to my live stream software, it does this sometimes. All right, put myself up on there. All right, there we go. Awesome. So yesterday, saw this data come out about liquidations over a 1 hour period. Basically, we had $2.6 billion of positions liquidated in 1 hour. Okay, most of them on Bybit exchange as normal. $1.1 billion in Bitcoin, $700 million in ETH. Okay, so let me explain kind of what's going on here. I've been watching this a little bit. A trend upward as the prices have gone higher. We've seen leverage increase quite a bit in the crypto markets for the past month and change, and this is something that was pretty rampant at the beginning of this year. One of the reasons that Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies rose in price so quickly is that basically people are borrowing money on currency exchanges they don't have to lever up, basically to get more exposure to help, and that puts buy pressure on the assets themselves. Now, the problem with that is there's a lot of hot air in the system. And so whenever you borrow money with leverage, small price movements can quickly cause your position to get liquidated, and that can have a negative impact on the price. And then that can cause more people to get liquidated. And then you have many participants basically just like panic selling whenever they watch these rapid price changes. And it's just sort of this cascading effect that eventually causes the price to move down quickly. And so, some stuff with like Bitcoin, for example, other major caps we saw, 15, 20% fast corrections, followed by a little bit of recovery. But I think that's a pretty big factor here. And so that's something that a lot of people understand is with leverage, let's just say you're using 10x leverage, for example. That means like if you deposit $1,000 into a trading account and use 10x leverage, then you can get exposed to $10,000 of the asset appreciating in price. But the problem is if it goes down by 10%, then you're getting into liquidation territory. And that's exactly what happens here. So, like I said, I don't really do financial advice on this channel, but one thing I can always say is it makes sense for, I never have a problem with telling you to exercise caution, which is for most people, like leverage just doesn't really even make sense. Hardly anybody does it make sense. Even the really advanced traders that use it a lot of times get wrecked. So, the last thing, with leverage, it's like, why would you want to get insane exposure to something that's already, the entire space is going up, in my opinion, in the mid to long term. And basically, if we're looking at a massive shift in how we use technology in an emerging asset class, a really quick way to lose your ticket on the seat for that rocket ship is to just blow up your account along the way. And you can quickly do that with leverage, and that's what we're seeing. Now, what I think is going to happen with the price. So because of this, I see leverage being a pretty big factor of what would happen here. I still maintaining a bullish bias, and I'm still maintaining this looks like a short-term temporary thing, and that kind of is just noise along the way. Now, does that mean that we couldn't see another dip from here? Yeah, it's very possible. But I talked last week about how I made another ETH buy. Of course, that was kind of close to the temporary top here, but I'm still seeing that as something that I'm not planning on touching for the next 3, 6, 9 months. Right? That's still the kind of time frame that I'm looking at for these markets to make a significant leg higher. I still think that it's very possible for Bitcoin and ETH to make new all-time highs relatively soon on the grand scheme of things, as in like I still don't think that we're going into some crazy bear market. I still don't think that this is like a dead cat bounce into into no man's land, or like goblin town, as they would say. But yeah, that's kind of my opinion in the short to in the long term, really in the short to mid term. This is I still think it's a short term thing. Okay, so that opinion really holds true for ETH and other assets. Like I said, we could be in kind of limbo for the next 7 days while the market's kind of deciding what it wants to do. We could even see another fall off here. Sometimes whenever you see these little blow ups, sometimes there's a second wave that happens. But like I said, I'm still of the opinion this is a short term thing, that it's kind of noise along the way. Do I wish I waited 5 days and gotten a 15-20% discount on my latest buy? Sure, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter that much. So, I did share a report yesterday from Standard Chartered about their sort of predictions on Ethereum, the asset itself, also Bitcoin. Since we're talking about prices, and I actually want to talk about another report that they put out. I don't know if this is the same report here or if it is a new report, but basically they're talking about how they're valuing Ethereum currently at $26,000 to $35,000. So if that's anywhere close to true for the potential upside and the relatively near-term grand scheme of things, like that's what I'm talking about. Like it's the short-term price relative to this valuation doesn't really matter that much. Now, my official, kind of price target for ETH is still $10,000. I still think it's very possible that ETH hits $10,000, on a reasonable time frame. I don't like to set firm dates on it, and some people say, "Oh, a price prediction is useless without, a specific date." But I still think that it can get there faster than other things that I would be comfortable holding with long term. That they have that kind of upside. So that's where I still stand on the ETH price, but I still think that's a very conservative thing, because that's how I like to think about this. I like to have a conservative price target that I'm probably not going to get disappointed by, and then if I hit that and I actually am able to secure value at that level, that it actually meets my goals. Like the last thing I want to do is set a sky high, price target, and then it just not even get close, and then you get absolutely wrecked because you didn't hit that. But I do think it's possible that we can get to these price levels. I just don't know what the time frame is. But zooming out, if we're looking at the short-term price movements compared to that upside potential, it just doesn't really matter that much. So, but in the future, I will say there are some learnings from this, because in the future, I think I am going to be tracking open interest more, and basically what's happening with leverage as sort of an indicator for what could happen in the short to midterm. Again, over time, this is all learning process, but when we start to see, leverage trend towards all-time highs, that's usually kind of a sign that, things could get a little bumpy along the way. And that's really more of an optimization of trying to figure out when the best sort of buy-in is. Now, another pretty pressing story that's going around significantly is what's going on with Coinbase right now. All right, so I want to pull up this tweet thread and bring this up. So basically, this is Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase. All right. So some really sketchy behavior coming out of the SEC recently. Of course, the Security Exchange Commission in the United States, the governing body that regulates a lot of what happens in the financial sector, especially around things that are securities. That's the domain of enforcement here. So millions of crypto holders have been earning yield on their assets over the last few years. It makes sense if you want to lend your funds out and you can earn a return. Everyone seems happy. So they're talking about, sort of the innovation in crypto where you can, deposit money into an application of some kind and somebody can take out loans on the other side and you earn passive income reward in doing that, in terms of interest. So I think a bunch of great companies in crypto have been offering versions of this for years. Of course, we've seen BlockFi do it. We've seen decentralized finance apps do it like Compound, Aave, et cetera, et cetera. And so Coinbase decided they want to launch their own product, which is supposed to be the Coinbase Earn program, where you could basically get 4% APY on USDC or USDC coins. So a stable cryptocurrency. It's pegged to US dollar, powered by Circle. So you could just hold USDC, park it in your Coinbase account, earn 4%. And that's very competitive to a traditional cash, fiat money bank account. So they responded by telling us this lend feature is a security. Okay. So it seems strange. How can lending be a security? So we asked the SEC to help us understand and share their view. So we always make an effort to work proactively with regulators and keep an open mind. So it says they refuse to tell us why they think it's a security and instead subpoena a bunch of records from us. So they comply. And then they demand a testimony from the employees. They comply. And then tell us they'll be suing them if they proceed to launch with zero explanation of why. Okay. So he goes in and says, look, they're committed to following the law. There's all this kind of stuff, but it does look like there's a significant amount of, unexplained behavior on the surface here that looks pretty unfavorable. So I've seen a lot of opinions about this floating around a bit there. One opinion is that, basically that the sort of pushback has less to do with the lend feature and actually maybe what's going on with USDC. Okay. We've seen this on NASDAQ. Basically, sort of one take on this is that the SEC chair hints that some stable coins are securities, which could be the case. So what they're saying is basically any crypto coin that, acts as a proxy to anything that is currently a security could be considered as a security. So if you have a stock token, clearly they're going to think of it as a security because now you're buying a token that is a proxy for a stock, which is a security. So, but one potential view here is that they could see stablecoins like USDC as a security because part of what backs the actual stablecoin itself are things like money market funds, bonds, commercial paper, okay? Because some of these things that they use as reserves are treated as securities under U.S. law. So that's one opinion here, is that this has less to do with the lend feature and more to do with what's kind of going on behind closed doors. Maybe they're building a case against USDC that this could come out later, okay? Another take that I'm seeing on this is that, this is an opportunity for crypto to kind of fight back a little bit. A lot of times when you see these SEC, sort of enforcements that basically these kind of crackdowns happen on, smaller time players that maybe have, or maybe large players, but that don't have very passionate, robust communities. They can kind of fight back, and that's a totally different world with crypto. So we'll see what happens there. And of course, we have seen the SEC kind of talk about investigations into Uniswap Labs, the creators of Uniswap, and how this has started to become maybe somewhat of a trend where, they're kind of going after prominent players in the space, and their treatment of these big players tends to set the tone for what happens with the little guys. So it'll be interesting to see how this, transpires and what comes to this. Yeah, totally. So, in the NFT space, we're seeing more NFTs sell, in the mainstream art world. So, Christie's is proud to announce the sale of art blocks, curated. Art blocks curated sets of sets 1 through 3 as a part of the post-war to present auction in New York on 1st of October. So bidding for this lot will be conducted live in ETH. All right, a first for any lending auction house. So it's pretty crazy. Like they're going to actually bid it up in ETH at Christie's auction house and sell the NFT. So this is pretty cool. This is not the first time we've seen some of these major NFTs sell at these major auction houses. We've seen CryptoPunks. We've seen the Beeple art collection. We've seen others. I forget what the other major collection was. I believe Sotheby's did a thing. We talked about one of the live streams a couple weeks ago. But this is a trend, and it's good for the crypto space. So yesterday during the yesterday, hold on a second. So we talked about El Salvador yesterday, and their continuation into Bitcoin. And yesterday during the dip, we are seeing the President El Salvador talking about adding 150 new coins, Bitcoins. I believe yesterday we talked about El Salvador getting more into Bitcoin. I think purchasing, it was $21 million worth of Bitcoin. I forget the number off the top of my head. So now El Salvador holds 550 Bitcoin. People talk about nations buying the dip. Okay, so let's see here. We got some questions in the chat. Somebody says SEC needs to meet us halfway. It's not just Coinbase, because if we wanted to, we could use a VPN and go elsewhere. Somebody said they panicked and sold the Uniswap when they heard. What's my opinion on Coinbase for Coinbase Pro? Key differences. Well, Coinbase Pro is a more sophisticated product in terms of trading features. You can do limit orders. You can get better fees on Coinbase Pro. So let's see here. Somebody says, will Solana pass ETH long term? Nobody's got a crystal ball. I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, I've got a video come out about Solana. So I'll put it this way, like it's hard to argue that what's happening on Solana is not impressive in terms of the rate of growth and adoption. That being said, the values of Solana are different from the values of something like ETH in terms of decentralization. It's a different philosophy altogether. So when you're talking about the ability to settle, insane amounts of money, like I'm talking about like north of $10 million or something like that. I think you're going to be you're going to highly value decentralization. You're going to highly value security. And ETH has got a significant advantage in that regard over Solana. So that's still why I'm bullish on ETH as a dominant platform that grows. It's not the only reason, but I think that's a significant reason. And the reason I pointed out is a trade-off really that Solana makes that I think doesn't quite make it the contender for the number one spot. That being said, that doesn't mean I don't think it can't be something great down the road. You know, the real problem is we have all these layer one blockchains that are competing, and a lot of them aren't necessarily competing to dethrone Ethereum as much as they are literally just competing with one another to like get that next spot. Because I think long term, and I'll probably do a video on this, sort of about the multi-chain world. We can talk about it now. I mean, we live in a multi-chain world now. So the real question is, what's the future of multi-chain look like? And I think it's going to look like we have a significant majority of activity happening on one, maybe two smart contract platforms. And then you have sort of this long tail of other things that compete with one another for the remaining market share. Why is that the case? Well, you typically see these types of distributions happen in nature. You see it with lots of things. You see it with search engines. You see it with, different high concentration of activity in a couple different areas. And so it stands to reason that that would happen in blockchain because you don't really want value just like scattered all over the place. You don't want to switch from a bazillion different things all the time. And so that's kind of how I see this playing out long term. But when you're talking about the sort of remaining chains that would compete with one another, or maybe compete as a leader, like that competition still is good for the entire space. And you have to think about it so zero sum. Like there's all this capital flowing into space, all this adoption happening, and it can flow towards all these different environments. I've made pretty strong bets on where I think a majority of it's going to go. But the entire space is going up. All the ships are really going to rise. And so, I mean, some things will lose. Some things are just not going to work out long term. I totally think that's the case. So you're getting significant risks on newer things. But I still think that, all these different environments can still compete with one another to create competition in this space, which makes things better. So that's kind of my take. But the initial question was, do I think that Solana is going to flip ETH long term? I don't think so. So what is the metaverse? It's a good question. So I got a video about the metaverse. You can definitely check that out. But the idea of the metaverse is an embodied internet. So sort of our next wave of internet where you can sort of experience it beyond sort of the two-dimensional internet that you see now. And talk about, you think about VR, you can think about digital worlds. And blockchain being a pretty essential part of that because at the end of the day, the metaverse is designed to be shared. It's not like just one, world built by a corporation that people can participate in. We're talking about a metaverse that is public and open, and you need a technology that can basically settle value inside the metaverse, and that's the value proposition of blockchain. Somebody says he thinks I'm sipping some vodka right now. It's definitely water. Okay, so let's see here. Your voice is super annoying. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see your opinion about Uniswap case. So I don't have an updated opinion about Uniswap. We've talked about it before, but if I see more stuff come out about it, we can re-up it. So looking for a Solana video. How about Luna? Yeah, maybe. Somebody says, careful, ETH2 adds double the ETH, means your price halves overnight. That's not true at all. Somebody says, I was trying to read the chat here, but it's moving so fast. If ETH gas stays high, there will always be a market for cheaper chains, even if they have less security for the growing number of small players, like what Ethereum clones, BNB, Polygon are now. So that is true. One caveat to that is that the Ethereum layer 2s are gaining adoption now that can satisfy that need. Okay, so do I think NFTs are suited for other digital assets such as music or similar? I think so. Let's see here. Yeah. Sorry, I saw another chat pop. So do I think that NFTs are suitable for music? Yes, I do. There's definitely some scalability issues with, how you can add music, all that type of stuff. But, we're saying I think the wrong question is to say, how can we basically take the exact model of how we consume music now and then just copy and paste it to NFTs? I think it's more about how can we figure out what can we do with NFTs that makes a unique value proposition for how we consume music. And that's really the question. And I don't think the answer to that is 100% clear, and it's going to require some experimentation to see what sticks, but that's where I can see it headed. Somebody says you have a lot of knowledge. Please try not to be shamelessly biased towards ETH because you invested in it. Think I'm shamelessly biased towards ETH? Shamelessly biased? So, I get this all the time, so I can address it now. So basically, you have to think about this in the opposite. You have to think about this in different. You have to flip your reasoning upside down. So basically, we're talking about investing. You're not investing in something that you think the incentive here is to make money, and when you invest, the incentive is to be right if you're going to make money. So if I thought I was wrong, I have zero influence of the price of ETH. Even if I had a 10 million person YouTube channel, I can't pump the price of ETH because it's so big market cap. So if my incentive was to be right and to make money, then I would just change my mind if I thought that there was something wrong with ETH's long-term value proposition. So people ask me about Solana, and I just said a lot of good things about Solana. I said a lot of good things about what could potentially happen with the multi-chain world. This doesn't change my thesis on where I think the space is headed and what the distribution of smart contract platform usage is going to be over the long term. Now, if that changes, like I said, I'm completely incentivized to be right, so I would just change my mind, and I would tell you. Let's see here. How confident do I think about ETH 2.0 going smooth and on time? What do you think would be signs for concern? So on time and going smooth are way two total different issues. We don't have an on time notion. I mean, I think Q1 of 2022 is kind of a broad time frame. I think we could definitely do that. For going smoothly in terms of nothing terrible happening, I think something terrible happening, the likelihood is negligible. All right, everybody, that's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Definitely put some videos out so that more people can learn about blockchain. If you're as fast in this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Well, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They like you to make courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can show you become a blockchain master step-by-step start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.